Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Outdoor Salty. I'm Sarah and today I'm going to share with you some of my favorite paddleboarding spots in Florida. I have been paddleboarding for about 14 years and I absolutely love it. While the Atlantic Ocean is my #1 spot for paddleboarding, as in it's the spot I go to the most, there are some other areas that I think are absolutely beautiful and I would totally recommend. Now some of these spots are very specific, and then some of them are just general experiences that can be had in multiple regions around Florida. I think Florida is beautiful, but it is kind of a 1 to 3 note wonder. You've got your beaches, you got your rivers and lakes, your tree canopies. You have your experiences here, but it does tend to be the same throughout the state. Okay, so let's get started with what I consider to be the best paddleboarding or kayaking experience in Florida: Bioluminescence. Now this is a very specific experience, and it's specific not just to a place but also to a time. So this is going to be maybe hard to plan out, but I'm going to give you all the details so that if you are ever in Florida, you can experience this incredible paddle. A quick backstory. I have done bioluminescence in Puerto Rico a very long time ago and it was incredible. The bioluminescence there was yellow and it was just like this bright yellow Gatorade color. It was absolutely amazing. I had heard a rumor that Florida had it, and so I went with a friend in June and it completely sucked. It did not exist whatsoever. The fact that some of these companies take people out when it is that bad, I just don't understand it. But anyways, that's for another day. Fast forward, I kept hearing that we had bioluminescence, and since I have my own paddleboard, I was trying to convince my friends, let's go hunt for bioluminescence just for the fun of it. But nobody seems to be as adventurous as me in this regard, so it never happened. Then one fateful day, a friend told me that her friend had just done a tour and absolutely loved it. So a couple of my friends and myself, we went ahead and booked this tour. If you brought your own board, it was absolutely free, except for a tip. Well, this experience was mind-blowingly amazing. It was 10 of 10, absolutely incredible. We made it about halfway across the intercoastal to this one island that we were gonna paddle around, and we started seeing the water just light up. And from there, we would paddle over schools of fish, and you would just see blue darts everywhere as the school of fish kind of like jetted around. And then we actually paddled to this beach area, and we could see very tiny ripple of waves on this beach, and they would light up as the water broke on the shore. And I can't even describe to you how incredible this experience was. Well, that guide was very nice and actually told me the #1 spot and best spot to go in Florida. And so I ended up telling some friends who have their own gear, and I said, hey, let's go to this one spot. So I knew kind of how to go about it, except that I had never been to this particular location. Well, I won't say that the experience topped my original experience, but that guide did tell me that that was the best he had ever seen it. Whereas this other spot is consistently amazing. And you see the bioluminescence the second you're not in bright light. It is incredible. So Beacon 42 in Titusville is definitely one of the best spots to go. They have a very limited number of tours, and those tours do run like machines. So I can't speak to the tours that go out of these locations. There might be actually better tours that go out of maybe a different area like the one that I did, that will have like a better overall experience and maybe even feel more exclusive. A couple things to note if you do go out, whether on a tour or not. Some tours will offer experiences even when it's not great. So this is important to note because the more knowledgeable you are, the less likely you're to waste your time. Now, bioluminescence is the best when it's really hot. So I have only gone end of July and August the past couple of years with my own board, and it's always been amazing. The one that I experienced a long time ago was in June, and it was pretty much non-existent. I don't even know why they were offering the tour. I'm kind of salty about it, to be honest, but So you want to consider the time of year. This is really, really, really important. You definitely want it to be hot for a long enough period of time because that's when the bioluminescence is the best. The other thing to consider is moonlight and just light in general. You can't go out there with a flashlight or else you won't see it at all. And the moon, if it's super bright, it could impact your experience. Now, I have gone out and friends have gone out when there was moonlight and it was just a hot enough time of year that it didn't really impact the experience. But if you're wanting to go, say, the beginning of July or maybe even in September, I would definitely consider the moonlight, as it could really impact your experience. But try to go when there's basically no moon or a new moon or just very little light in general. Now, when you do go, if you book a tour, they should tell you this information, but I'm just gonna tell you it anyways. Try to wear long sleeves and pants and then douse yourself in bug spray. The mosquitoes, especially before you launch, are just brutal. They will eat you alive. So just come prepared for that. The other thing I would say to prepare for is some tours probably offer this themselves, but buy some glow sticks because you will want to be able to see each other when you're out there and kind of know people's general vicinity. And if you are taking your own board and you're not from Florida and you don't already know this, you have to have a life jacket on your paddleboard or your kayak in rivers and lakes. So make sure that you bring that along if you don't have one. And I think that's basically it. It's incredible and I definitely recommend it. And if you do end up giving it a try at maybe a less prime time, there is something beautiful and magical about being under the stars at night, but of course, try and go when it's prime because the experience is really, 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 really special. How many times can I say really? I don't know, but that's how special it is, and I definitely think it's worth experiencing. Okay, my next location has kind of become a little bit social media famous, and that is King's Landing. Now, King's Landing is private as far as I know, so I did have to pre-book. You do get a lesser fee if you take your own gear, but they also offer for you to rent their own gear, which I know they have kayaks, canoes, and I believe also paddle boards. King's Landing really does look like the photos that you see. Some of the people will paddle down with coolers and just kind of like pop out a picnic lunch. Are there gators? In Florida, if there's freshwater, there's gators. However, it is so crowded at King's Landing that it's not likely for you to see a gator because the amount of people, it really kind of deters the gators from being around. So I wouldn't worry about the gators, but it's absolutely beautiful. The water is cold by my standards, but on a hot summer day, it can be refreshing. Nearby King's Landing, which is actually, I think, what King's Landing either flows into or flows from, I'm not sure, is Rock Springs. That is a state park, and you can go there and actually lazy river down. As far as springs go, it's one of the more fun springs because of the lazy river situation. And again, there's always danger of gators no matter what freshwater you're in, but because there's so many people there, usually it's not a concern. So if you do King's Landing and you're not from Florida, maybe go ahead and also do Rock Springs. Speaking of springs, most springs in Florida are gonna probably offer some type of paddling experience, and they're all gonna be variations of beautiful. I'm gonna highlight one of my favorite paddles though that I've done at a spring. Silver Springs is really famous for their glass bottom boats, but if you're wanting to be a little bit closer to the water and maybe with less tourists, definitely rent a kayak or paddleboard while you're there. Now, it's a bit of a drive for me, so I actually did rent a paddleboard from this particular place, but you can take your own for a lesser fee. So if you take your own, all you're actually gonna be paying for is the shuttle from your end point. So what I recommend is the 5-mile downstream paddle. Now I know 5 miles sounds like a lot, however, it's downstream. So there were times that I just sat and laid on my paddleboard and just took in the sights. Now, a few points about this experience. Once you get to the end of the 5 miles, you will obviously kind of take yourself out of the water and then you will wait for the shuttle, and the shuttle will pick you and your board or kayak up from the end point and take you back to the starting point where your car is. What I love about this paddle is it's just so beautiful. It's relaxing, and you will see wildlife. And when I say wildlife, I mean you'll see gators. But don't freak out too bad. The gators really don't want to bother you, and the water is so clear that I promise you will see them coming, and they're not going to come because they don't want you. When we did start out, my friend in the kayak actually kind of ran into a gator by accident. The gator freaked, went one way, she freaked, we all kind of freaked. But we were all okay. And then we continued on. That was kind of at the start before the water was clear. Once the water gets clear, all the gators that we saw, they were on the sides, kind of blending in with nature. So to be honest, unless you're really good at spotting a gator, you're probably not even going to see them or know that they're there. Silver Springs is also known for having monkeys, and I really had wanted to see them, only to find out the monkeys are really mean. And they're mean because people have been feeding them. And apparently this one monkey even capsized a woman's kayak. So they do have monkeys, but if you're kayaking or paddleboarding, you probably don't want to see them. But also PSA, stop feeding wild animals. Overall, I absolutely love this experience. Silver Springs has a ton to offer. So if you don't want to do a 5-mile downstream paddle, you can do a circle paddle, or you don't even have to paddle. You can get on a glass bottom boat and enjoy the beauty of the springs from there. Similar to the springs paddle, the next one is one that you can have in multiple locations throughout Florida, and that is paddling in between the mangroves of the Intracoastal. Now, I've done this in a couple of spots in Florida, one being kind of New Smyrna area, like Cape Canaveral National Shore, or even down in the Keys and Key Largo at, I think it's called Penny Camp. Both of these offered really great kind of mangrove mazes, and they're super fun. In the Intracoastal, you could potentially see manatees, dolphins, and yes, you could probably see sharks, but to be honest, I never have. And I've gone, so many times. But where there are fish, there are dolphins and sharks. So there is that possibility. Florida has a ton of rivers and lakes, but I will highlight one that is basically in the Orlando area, and that is Winter Park's River, Lake, Canal Paddle. It's absolutely beautiful. I did it a long time ago, and I think they do actually offer boat tours as well if you're not really in the mood to paddle. You will pass under beautiful tree canopies, or you'll also have views of extravagant homes. Either way, it is a really nice paddle and very close. Basically, it's Orlando. If you do go, stop on Park Ave in Winter Park for some gelato or coffee before or after your paddle. All right, so this next one is not one that I have done yet, but it is kind of on my list because it is a very unique, specific experience. Brevard Zoo offers paddling down the Intracoastal with views of the animals on either side. Or maybe it's just one side actually and not either side. I haven't done it yet, so I'm not sure how that works, but I think it sounds like such a cool experience. So if you are a fan of visiting zoos, Brevard Zoo might be a great choice. And then from there, you can add on a paddling experience. All right, last but not least, the ocean. The ocean in Florida is a great place to paddleboard. And yes, it probably does depend on exactly what type of conditions we're dealing with. I have gone out in the ocean when it's been choppier, and it is not quite as enjoyable of an experience, but the summer in Florida is often very flat on both sides, both the Gulf and the Atlantic side, and so it is a great time to paddle. There are a lot of places that will rent out paddle boards and deliver them. So just do a little bit of research for your area because you might find a company that will deliver the paddleboard to you wherever you're at. I love my ocean paddles. I have seen dolphins regularly, and I even saw manatees once. I don't know, there's just something beautiful and serene about being on the ocean. And if you get the right type of paddleboard and the waves are somewhat existent, you could even surf a little bit. All right, well, that's it. I hope it was helpful. As you can see, some of the locations are very specific, but some of the experiences can be had in multiple areas of Florida. So if you are planning a visit, I hope that you're able to find one that really suits you and your preferences. As always, I will provide the links in the description just to make it very easy for you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you get outside and enjoy the beautiful outdoors. Have a great one. Bye.